Be with you momentarily as this goes on. I currently have one small thing I need to do, and that is check why the audio from Guitar Pro is not piping in. So I'm just doing what I can as quickly as possible here. My apologies. Don't want to keep anybody waiting for what's about to happen, essentially. Select that one as that. Monitor and output. Why is the output of that not even going out? What the hell? I think it was working last time, but I don't get it. Maybe it's something different. We're gonna check something here real quick by way of pulling up the music screen. Dirt. Howdy do. Don't mind me, like I'm still technically in setup mode. I don't know why this is causing me problems when it really shouldn't. So Guitar Pro should be coming through, but it's not at the moment. Maybe it's under DAW audio that I had to do this. Mix 01. Monitor and output. There we go, okay. My bad. And give me one more moment here. Because this is going to be a fun day. Gonna be a fun day. Okay, where was that source again? Be like, this is me at like 8 in the morning. I just had a shower and I had to shave my head because it was annoying the hell out of me. And this is me basically being relatively rushed. So, yeah. Last night, something, whatever. I kind of started dabbling with tabbing stuff out again, and I'm kind of bringing things up to speed the best I can. And there's still some stuff that I do have that I need to tab out, which, from my knowledge, there's going to be some odd sounding sounds and or notes, if you will, when I start tabbing other songs. But so far, I've been progressing a little bit. Nothing, I guess, like groundbreaking or any of that kind of stuff. Some stuff could be mind blowing to myself, but not to other people. It's the way that you interpret your own art, right? But yeah, it's a fun time ahead. And let me make sure that I have all of my stuff on a separate screen real quick because I need to have that handy over there at least, and that as well. All sorts of stuff. Zero mistakes, as a friend would say. But beside the point, yeah. For those that are tuned in, how we doing? How we doing on this? What is it? Sunday morning for Pacific time zone. Probably at this point now, Sunday afternoon / evening in Europe, and Monday in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. Also, never forget to have water handy. So, one thing that I want to definitely say here at this point in the stream, which will become available as a VOD later on, or at least a video on the channel. Next Saturday, I have this document that I started developing back in August. Right. Let's open this up right now, just because I use other means of software, et cetera, yada yada. So at the least I can share just a little bit of this stuff. I don't want to ruin the whole entire surprise as far as this is concerned, because I want this to come out in full next Saturday and be in your hands so that you can more or less study it. There's still also a couple of things that I need to add in, which I'll be adding in this morning or afternoon, sometime after stream time. But the detail that I went into making sure that I had everything possible available in this document, I was always thinking about, like, okay, there's a lot of comments that are on various videos asking, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Or is there like something that you can do to maybe code into it and make it do this or that or whatever? Even though I didn't develop the software, some people believe I did. I don't know why. It's kind of weird. But as a user of this for a few years now, it's saved me in multiple occasions between different computer builds. Sorry there. And I think that it was just time to kind of like put everything down on digital paper and develop a PDF that's going to more or less give people the information they're more than likely looking for without maybe, I don't know, being like too stumped on certain things. It's like, to me, the way that I have this set up is straightforward, but at the same time, there's still, probably like a couple of errors here and there or whatever. So, like page one is just like installation, giving you like an overlay of some of the stuff, right? Like how you can choose or whatever the 60 stereo WDM, which is just like your standard Windows drivers or whatever, which become virtual within the environment for AZO Pro, AZO, whichever. I should just start calling it ALP from now on, just so it's not as dirtier. And then after installing, kind of just like the whole rundown of, you can select how many of these specifically show up in your headphone and microphone selections in something like Zoom or Discord. Same thing with OBS Studio or Streamlabs or any other software that you use for that kind of stuff. And then information for patching stuff. There's an updated video that regards some of the stuff. And I do intend on having this material all put together in the bundle when it comes to next week's release, and at least going over a little bit more of it, getting acquainted with everything, including the Pro Tool and the routing matrix, explaining like where you can locate the things like the purple and the green box, if you will, for loading up the Pro Tool and the routing matrix. Pro Tool being purple, routing matrix being green. Kind of like a weird and clever way, I think. Setting it all up in basic general, in an introduction to the routing matrix and all that kind of stuff, yada yada. So with that in mind, I am releasing this next week, and it's huge. There's still at least 2 more programs that I want to add into that, and that would be Streamlabs and OBS Studio, because those two are probably going to have more questions on top of it, because some people may ask, like, hey, like, how do I set it up so that I'm getting audio from this to this and whatnot? And I want to make sure that that information's there, just so that when somebody comes up with the question, it's already there in the PDF, and I can just say it's there in the PDF. It should be on X page or X section. Um, Let me actually open up a copy of the PDF as it looks currently. Hopefully it's only loading. Yeah, so even marked in chapters, essentially, if you will. This is the one thing that I wanted to have with this when I started doing this. If I was going to do it, I had to have all of that on the left. And now that I do have that, that means all I have to do is under DAWs and applications, section 11, I can add in 12 and 13, Streamlabs and OBS Studio, or whichever way they come into play. So these things can come in ultra handy for anybody, and that's the plan for next Saturday, and that's going to be the first thing that's going to be put up on whatever I guess platform to download. I do know that it's going to go up on my Discord for people that are on my Discord server. The channels should be visible to the public, but only in read mode now because of all of this. So I want to make sure that everything that's there eventually in the ALP repository becomes this. And as soon as that happens, then I think the other ALP channel is going to be graveyarded, and probably just turn the ALP repository into read only and put it in a separate channel somewhere, whatever. The PDF should be about as intuitive as possible so that if you're a first time user, every little step by step should get you set up. The biggest thing, though, that I have to try to remind people as well is this section right here, audio interface suggestions. This is a big thing because a lot of people ask about how do I set it up with ASIO for all, or how do I set it up with Voicemeeter, Banana, or Potato. And some of those people don't utilize audio interfaces that have signed drivers from the manufacturer that give you good enough ASIO driver support. So by getting an interface about as cheap as one of these in example, it should override the need to have to utilize a extra audio virtualization method such as A for A or hell, Voicemeeter or synchronous audio router or any of that kind of stuff. I'm not, basically, if I'm to be vulgar about it, I'm not shitting on any of those as an option. They do kind of require something that is ASIO driven, but there are workarounds as well. But I highly suggest having an audio interface of some sort that has signed drivers that is supported in modern day by the manufacturer. So Presonus or Motu or Focusrite or Avid, any of these companies, if they have a USB-C interface, get it, because that's going to guarantee you supported drivers. You may have to tweak with some stuff in your BIOS a little bit in order to get it to run correctly. It all depends. But if there's a slight issue in BIOS, it might have some minor issues from time to time, but it still works. It guaranteed will work. And having one of these 5 as an example could be the gateway to having ALP work in the best construct for you, for what you want to do. If you're doing something like FL Studio or Studio One, Reaper, Pro Tools, Cakewalk, like everything that's listed there on the side under DAWs and applications, all of that would be supported, and you can route all of your audio from those DAWs into other stuff. You could probably route Reaper into Pro Tools if you wanted to using ALP. Would I highly recommend the idea of 2 DAWs at once and then trying to pipe things across? Maybe. It depends, I guess. If you're maybe summing things from a few buses into one bus between each other, but that's a separate thing for another time. Just bottom line, I'm going to be reiterating this next stream next week. This is meant to be for people with an audio interface. That's the way I'm approaching it. I don't know anything about A for A or voice meter on a level where I can make it work with a Windows driver virtually into a fake ASIO, whatever, and then pipe it in between various applications or from DAW to application or whatever. There are methods to do that without requiring ALP. I'm not exactly a professional in that, but for me right now, this is what I want to offer just because I believe that people need this information and they need a better understanding of how this kind of stuff does work. It's not entirely 100% like rocket science, if you will, but I just want people to know. Taco Master, what is up? Speaking of, I got long nails. Apparently, I missed Mario Kart last night, but I also worked. So, trade off. I may actually have to technically clip these sometime midstream if I have to pick up my guitar. But the one thing I was working on in Discord the other day, I'm playing it back today so I can be refreshed with it. Because tabbing, business, and chilling at the same time, right? I don't know exactly how loud this is going to be, but I'm going to press play anyways because this is how ALP routes my audio from Guitar Pro 8, which I do recommend because Audio Track is a godsend. You can import drums into this thing and tab out guitar ideas on the fly, try them all out, etc., etc. Oh, calm air. Were they swapping controllers again last night and causing those disconnects? Because if they were, stop swapping. Just turn around for like 15 seconds and make it a fair trade. Pressing play because I have no other things to do in my brain except be socially awkward. And that's Mortal Perdition. That is, what? Basically like 7 minutes long or something like that. I still need to, I think there's a couple of sections where there may be some missing notes where I need to take some of those notes out just to and give it like a different rhythmic feel or something like that. Not 100% sure, but at the very least, having things tabbed out and then when the time comes, sending the tabs to the other people that I work with or want to work with at least. I can ask them, like, okay, here's everything that I have down. I can make notes in certain sections about what parts, if I'm playing guitar live, these are parts that I know I can play, unless if in both of the guitarists that I do talk to and work with, if they like, because I got one that basically smokes me out of the water. Then I have another one that's starting to like really smoke me more on out of the water as well, and could equally play just as well along with the other one. So if they want to take these parts and then kind of like figure something out with it, and then I take keyboards or vocal only or whatever it is, it's just a matter of figuring out how we want to do all of that, or if I want to just take up on bass and kind of be like, screw it, why not, whatever, yada yada. Just develop all of this stuff, send it to them, let them know like, hey, these are parts I know I can play. If there's a part that's missing, or if there's a part that you want to add in yourself somewhere, whatever, like let me know, or at least add in the part and see what you can do to play off with some of these things, and we'll kind of figure out like how to approach these things, because like that last section there for Mortal Perdition could be just me just doing the rhythm and carrying that, while the other two can play out the harmonic and melodic content or whatever that you would call, like this whole thing right here. I'll just mute and play this. I hope it's not going to shred ears or whatever, but I know there's like, aside from needing to add in those rests there to finish up that, I know that there's like a little different play as far as I understand with the last four measures there before it drops back into the rhythm, if you will. That just takes it the rest of the way out. But yeah, there's a couple of things that can still happen, but I'd say that's relatively solid enough that I can open up something else and take a look and see what we've got going on. I don't think I played this one on stream, but one thing I can definitely say is, okay, so the audio track is there, but I'm going to take it out. I don't know exactly how the audio on this one's going to sound, but I'm going to drop it a few dB because don't want to blast ears. Could also stand to maybe zoom that in just a little bit more. So this is like a song that I wrote in 2007 after I moved into the place I'm living at right now. And it's fun, but the audio version that's in the background as well was a version, I think, from 2018, 2019 or something like that. I know that it was played at one or two of the last gigs I did before COVID. So fun times. And I'm going to run this again as well, just because it's smart to kind of, go over your work. And that's where that one's at. I do know that when I arranged this in a level, that some of the timings were a little bit off from what the audio itself is. So I do get to go over some of that for that lead part a little bit later on and figure out what that timing is, because it should be, I think, a quarter note and then 2/8 notes, but the timing as well is kind of roughly in the realm of where I wanted it to be. Regardless, though, it's deemed done. And what other ones do we have in here as well? Because So your Solitary Poem and Ruination are two in which those are a little bit tricky because I need to line up or at least time everything and make sure that I've got the BPM stuff working out. I tried arranging some of the information for Ruination, but for some reason I think the BPM isn't exactly working in favor with where it's supposed to hit, perhaps, or something like that. So I have to consider opening up the project file if I still have it somewhere and make a note of where everything kind of starts and how many milliseconds it is from the start of the file and so forth. The audio track in Guitar Pro 8 is really handy for a lot of that kind of stuff, but when you have songs that also have like a tempo map of some sort that slows down and then speeds up, I don't know if it properly interprets it or not, because you can't really, I mean, like you could import the tempo map, I'm pretty sure of it. It just isn't accurate so far on the file. And then with, what's the other one? Solitary Poem. So I have the lane set up for everything. I think I didn't start anything, but I have everything mapped out tempo wise, so it should all be on beat as far as I understand. The biggest issue is going to be fighting through most of the sections because when developing the song, I didn't really give it much movement, which is a hell no if you're, constantly writing, like pedaling basically the same root note for, I think, what, like 75+% of the song, unless if you're, making it dynamic on some level where you have like layers on top that change keys or modes or something like that. So like you could be in B minor and then shift it to like B major for a moment and then shift it to like to a scale like B Phrygian dominant to like Lydian flat second or like sharp 4 or whatever. And you can like do all of those things and still kind of like allow that pedaling to go on and just shift everything around. But this definitely could stand after almost 6 years or so of existing. It could benefit from a little bit of a pickup and changing some of the rhythm around. And that's going to be a fun thing to fight through on this. But I'm going to play the song anyways, just because, hey, why not, right? Bop the volume up just a little bit on the audio track and bop it down a bit on the master. I wish I could actually like here, focus and focus, no. Center, no. The one thing I wish I could do in this is be able to like set an actual value that I prefer rather than sliding around and being like, oh yeah, by the way, like 2.1, 2.5, 2.9, 3.3. Like what if I want it to be like 3.5, right? But you have to like do it based on like approximate values. And I don't want it right there. But at the same time, it makes a huge jump by like almost a full decibel. Annoying. But there's no tabs on this right now because I need to obviously redo it. But I'm going to play the song. And yeah, if you can hear the inspiration from Final Fantasy VI, then a WinRAR is you, right? At some point, I should actually think about moving my vocal processor to under the desk next to me so I don't have to turn all the time and toe up to basically deactivate the mic. Imagine that. Um, yeah, if it's like ultra light, but it's in like an E standard tuning, it would be probably like solid. If you're going E flat standard, I don't know how that would hold. But if it works in that favor, then I mean, give it a shot. You're probably gonna have like a little bit of a flub to the playing, but it couldn't possibly be that bad. I mean, considering shit, what was it that I was using most of the years being in drop A? It was like I think I was mostly using like 10 to 56 or something like that, or even 10 to 59. I don't recall. I remember getting the I think it was like the green packages from Ernie Ball, and those were probably like 10 to 56. But those for me, like, they felt great, and then I wound up getting a 59, so the low B got a bit tighter, but intonation for drop A becomes slightly problematic, maybe. Not entirely sure. And then I got on 11 to 64 with NYXL strings, and those felt tight, but they also felt good. But I needed something that was just a slight bit lighter. And then I wound up getting us here. I had So to start out, I had a 7 string, a Squire. I think it was a Stage Master or something like that, and it had a Floyd in it. I typically was popping strings on that because I don't know how to set up strings or any of that stuff for a Floyd. Just not my thing. And then I ended up getting a Washburn, I think like an X27 or something like that. And I was using the same strings for that as well, like 10 to 56 or something like that. And then I got my first Ibanez, and that thing was where everything was at for me, and still with 10 to 56, 10 to 59, something like that. Um, it was only up until when I grabbed a 27-inch scale Agile, when I recall grabbing like there was a set of strings that was like, I think it was 11 to 74, but I only used all but the 11 for it, and it wasn't long scale, so it didn't exactly fit. So there's problems. Once I had long scale on it, I started playing around with it and was like, well, this doesn't feel that bad, but there was always a resonance when playing an A sharp. So even if I had drop A in a certain section, and there was just that little bit of like why is the body resonating so much and why is it feeding into the pickups? Because it did. So I had more noise on it than I wanted, and then I figured, well, I might as well treat it like an 8 string, and you can go down to 74 and get like F sharp or F or E or something like that. Even playing A sharp notes across the board on that still gave those resonances, which is completely weird. I have never owned a guitar that had that much resonance from one single note across, I think, like 3 octaves or something like that. It was totally weird. Like the higher in pitch you go, like the less resonance you can feel and sort of like hear from the body. But the lower you go, like if I was playing that guitar with like say a 105 gauge or something like that, and I'm tuned like double drop B or double drop A sharp or something like that, right? I'd still have massive resonance from that lowest A sharp, and it would probably bug me to the point where it's like I cannot play it, which I couldn't play it, so I gave it to somebody else who wanted a 27-inch scale. I opted to go back onto Ibanez for that purpose, I believe, or I picked up a Schecter afterwards. The Schecter wasn't bad, but I started learning something in my time with trying out different guitars and different I guess like ingredients, if you will, to what makes guitar to you. And the one thing I found out is most of the stuff that I've written, I cannot play on a 26 and a half. I have to figure out like different methods for playing or go single note instead of doing specific chords or whatever. Unless if it's like, say like 3 strings in like drop tuning and then chug or whatever. But playing around with a 26 and a half, playing around with a 27, like my hands just are not up to par for it. My fingers might be long enough to some people or whatever, but my stretch over time has diminished, I guess. And playing like there's one riff from a studio project I had a while back, and it's a beast riff. I love it so much that I want to use it really bad, but I don't know how I would want to reinterpret it, whether or not if it's like slowing it down, speeding it up, or whatever. But it's, to me, playable on a 25 and a half scale. I try it on a 26 and a half and I get hand fatigue quicker. The same as if I try playing some of my more demanding stuff, I get hand fatigue a little bit quicker and I have to like try to fight through it and then give my hand a rest for like 2 or 3 days, give it some like hot water soaks just to like loosen it up a bit. I do hand stretches from time to time, but it's just still not enough. So for me, 25 and a half scale is like perfect. And some people, continue to argue with me about, you need to play these for like the style of stuff that you play. And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, from what I remember when Korn was recording their first album, everything they were doing was on 25 and a half. Why am I not allowed to do that, right? But it's also like scale versus tuning versus string gauge. It's all intonation. Like, do you need to move the saddle forward or backward? And do you have to get a different gauge in order to guarantee that the open and the 12th fret harmonic line up or whatever? Or is it something to do with like the 12th fret harmonic and the 12th fret when it's fretted? Whether or not if it's like flat or sharp or whatever. I mean, I could probably get somebody to do it because I can't do that kind of stuff, but no holes in donuts yet. Not yet. Though I am planning on killing one of those donuts in the box that I haven't killed yet as soon as I'm done here. And that's in about another 10 minutes or something like that, give or take. Because I am doing like small like bouts of, live streaming, yada yada. I may spontaneously live stream again sometime during the next week, and if so, it may actually be something a little bit more than just Guitar Pro. Maybe a look into the process of how I kind of like do things the way I get, like, maybe I don't know how to explain it better, but for some people it's showing kind of like how being neurodivergent, like autism and all that kind of stuff, like how that can play into how one sees things or how one approaches a process, which is something that I also have to fight with some people about from time to time. Past that, Ruination, fuck it, why not? We'll at least play Ruination. I don't need to change any of this save things, whatever, yada yada. Have to also add more measures because dirt. But yeah, if I do end up with spontaneous live streaming, it may be something a little bit more than this, but yeah. I think, I mean, to my knowledge, I think maybe Head had a trem of some sort that he used, or like to get like some like weird effects. They both may have. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it could have been Monkey, even one or the other or both. But yeah, like they were 25 and S scale length guitars, and they they had the sound. They had the sound to them. It was what, like a Mesa dual rec with probably Mesa cabs as well. As far as I understand it, the sound was raw and the sound was just like there was an energy to it compared to now, and we have like 29.4 inch scale length guitars, and that's like Meshuggah grade, you know, not knocking that because that's mean. Like that offers a legit mean tone. The question is more or less like, how in the hell can you do stuff with that if you don't have like the stretch? If you're doing like say like specific chords that require like 3 fingers, you'd have to have like spider hands or something. But yeah, yeah, exactly. Like they I think it was like a gem or a universe. One of the two first got their hands on, and that's kind of where like things exploded, as far as I understand or remember. But you know, details are all over the internet, so it's easy to research that. But I do know that when they were doing what they were doing back then, those guitars were 25 and a half, and that's basically been my sound as well on my own end with drop A, not like A standard, for over 20 years, 25 years at this was here, because I've been doing this for 25 years, and this year marks 20 years of when I picked up a 7. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I'll have to look into that. But I am gonna play this last one and then sit down for a moment, chill, yada yada. There's no actual tab on this because I still need to figure out the tempo mapping for this and make sure that it's all in work, because from what I remember, this is purely in 4/4, but parts of it sound like it's in 3/4 or something like that, or like some weird meter, something, whatever. And then you figure it out, which I'll do probably in the next couple of days or something. But I'm gonna play this and we're gonna chill for a minute with some orchestral slash metal slash something, whatever. Ding. So yeah, as you could tell during playback, like early on here, let's bring this back. This one section here, from what I remember, the correct BPMs. Yet at the same exact time, trying to automate this, and it just wasn't lining up. So I was kind of like, like I'll figure it out later. But I believe I still have the original project file for this, and by proxy, I could really improve the hell out of it. But I also want to tab it out so that I can take what's there and make sure that everything is lined up how I want it to be, and then figure out like how to, I guess, like work with the timing structure of one of the later sections where I had this just weird, like, I don't know, like sort of 80s or 70s inspired, like dual harmony thing. It sounded like old school something, whatever. And I kind of want to figure out like how I can tab that out just in case if I ever eventually find myself programming drums, whether or not if it's in Cubase or Reaper or whatever, and then importing it into Studio or into Guitar Pro, and think like, hey, what if I mess with it just a little bit, timing wise, where it doesn't feel as straightforward with like triplets or dotted notes or whatever. Just like, what if it can be really weird? Then again, I'm drawn to like doing things in a very weird way, which is a time eater for people that want to do something outside the box, but also don't really create much in terms of, I guess, like song output or like demo output. Like you could probably like scratch pad something real quick and then think like, okay, all I have to do is just like re-record all of this stuff in however many takes it requires in order to nail it, and then if necessary, comping parts, uh, time alignment if it's absolutely necessary, or whatever, right? But with something like this, it was just like an on the fly kind of like, wait, what if I try doing something like this where it kind of like does like a push and pull kind of a thing, but it feels like it's 5 notes in like one measure, and that kind of played pretty well, especially with two guitars playing different melodic content but playing in harmony with each other. Compare that to writing an entire song that has multiple time signature changes and sounds like it doesn't 100% act in a cohesive manner, but when everything's like all played together from start to finish, it's more or less just like telling a story in its own way. Combine that with the lyrics that were written for it, basically Delicious Red. The lyrics that were written for it are kind of like their own story, whereas like the way that the music plays out is a story on its own with multiple sections. So it's like multiple chapters, different things, and there's no real repetition. So there's no like hook, there's no verse really. It just goes. It's unhinged. There's no structure realistically. But when playing with it, it's like it tells a story along with the lyrics that are there. There's like so much going on, it's ridiculous. But that's beside the point for now. It has been an hour, and I do need to, at the very least, kind of jump back into the real world for a little bit. But at the very least, I was able to kind of share a little bit of the PDF file that's going to be released next week, and at least prove, or like, what is it, like proof of work, whatever term they use for crypto at this point. Having that file visible on screen and showing kind of like what's there, seeing like how much of everything is there, and then showing what the final format of it kind of looks like in browser mode should be of massive enough help to understand what's coming next week. And we're going to be going over that together. I need to at least just get the last little bits of it finished up between now and then, which shouldn't be that much of a hassle. It's just 2 more sections, and then probably going over all the wording to make sure that everything is about as solid or straightforward as possible without being overly wordy, which I have a problem with apparently. But, you know, things happen, right? Yeah. I would say that this was an hour, I feel well spent just giving that information as like a heads up visually. So there's, proof of work, proof of stake. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens between now and then. I may end up coming back on and doing a music stream again, like maybe do something new, do something old. It's just a matter of what. At the very least, doing these is giving me an idea of what I can bring to the table in terms of my YouTube channel. I know that it's going to be a long road ahead, but I have no problem with that. I'm down to put in the work, and that's kind of the plan as it is for now. So the next thing to do is get all of this stuff handled and present it next week, and maybe even do something a little bit fun in between now and then. If you are in one of the few Discord servers that I participate in as moderator or admin even, I will see you there, or something to that effect. It is time to work on unwinding from doing this. And I will see you again very soon here. I will make sure to keep everybody updated as far as plans via Discord. The spontaneous live streams, if they happen, my apologies in advance. Yeah. I will see you again soon. I will guarantee a video to come next week on the live stream. PDF file incoming. Y'all take her easy. Have yourselves a great Sunday or Monday if you're in time zones related to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, and so on. And we'll see you next week.